My name's Tom. I'm one of those people that work on the dark side in private practice, and I work full-time in private practice. And I guess I just want to have a chat about how I found myself in private practice, and I guess how it can be quite flexible, and you can create a job that kind of aligns with your values and your goals. So I think, why is transitioning so hard? I think we've all been through that process of becoming a registrar, get through your training, and then you start and you're a consultant, and then you're not quite sure where to go. And I think it's because your life to date has been very scheduled. You've gone through high school, you've gone through university, you know exactly what you've needed to do, you've done your internship, and then you get onto a training program. It's been very kind of laid out to you. But as soon as you become a consultant, you're left on your own. You're not quite sure where to go. There's no one there to kind of tell you what to do. And this is particularly so if you go into private practice, because you then enter the world of running a business. And this is not something that a lot of people have been taught. And if you haven't run a business before, it's a very steep learning curve. So I think it takes a bit of a leap of faith. So I think if you make that decision to go, look, I'm happy to give private practice a go, you kind of just have to go full ball into it and make that commitment and jump off the cliff. So I think when I talk to kind of people who started out in there as early career consultants or are thinking about entering private practice, I always ask them to think about, what are your values, what are your goals, and not just in your work career, because not everything is about work. It's work and life. Okay, so I often ask people, what do you want to get out of life? What are your values? Do you want to help people? Do you want to make lots of money, or do you want to spend more time with your family? What is it that you want out of your job? Because work isn't going to be all that you do. So for me, my story, my values very much align with my family. So I have a couple of little kids. I've got a 3-nager, and I even like being at home with her, believe it or not, at some stages. And I've got a couple of little kids who I love spending time with. I love spending time with my wife as well. And so that was a big part of my life. So I wanted to be flexible enough in my work to be able to spend time with them. Okay, so I work 4 days a week, which is quite nice. Monday to Thursday, I have every Friday off. So I get time to take care of my toddler and spend time with her. So she actually knows me when I kind of turn up in the middle of the night. And the other thing is, we, as kind of paediatric doctors, I think we all enjoy spending time with kids and helping kids. And for me, that's a big part of my job. Money, not really that kind of a big deal for me. So as long as I'm kind of addressing my family and things, and that will make me happy. So my story, I was a senior registrar up at Nambour Hospital. So I was about 3 to 4 months out of finishing my training. And starting to think about, oh my God, I've got 3 or 4 months left before I lose all my secure job. I don't have a kind of a public position coming up that I can kind of nicely slot into, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity around at that time. So I think I was at a vulnerable time when the hospital kind of approached me and said, look, do you want to come and help set up a private practice? And a lot of people don't know, if you're out of state, that Greenslopes is actually a war veteran hospital. So they usually seek people who are 70 and above, and they wanted to set up a maternity unit. So I wasn't really convinced that that was going to work to kind of change that perception. But I didn't really have a lot of other options, so I said yes. So I think part of that then is you're finding yourself at the right place in the right time. So that opportunity came. I decided to take it. It took a big leap of faith because we all have commitments. We have commitments financially, paying for mortgage and school fees and putting food on the table. And without a steady income, that can bring a lot of stress. That and the fact that I didn't actually know anything about business. I didn't know what a GST was. I didn't know what a BAS was. I didn't know anything about hiring people or managing staff. I didn't know anything about kind of how to buy equipment or how loans work or how to structure my business. I didn't know what a trust was, a corporate trustee was, and how to run a company. So that was all a very steep learning curve. So how do you set up a successful private practice? So that's my practice there. I didn't come up with that logo. That was the hospital, but it's kind of pretty catchy. I think the main thing to, as I said before, is having a having a goal, having a mission statement, having something that you believe in, that you're willing to work hard for, but also having it written down. And it's important to write it down because you want your staff and the people that work for you to be all on the same page. And for us, it was being about comprehensive care. We wanted to be able to be a kind of one-stop shop. We wanted to have paediatricians. We acknowledged that we didn't know everything. We acknowledged that, I guess, as early career consultants, we were going to need support. So we wanted to have people around us to kind of help us. So that was a big part of it. So we had general paediatricians, we had speech therapists, psychologists, we've had OTs and physios and dietitians, and we all kind of worked together as a team, acknowledging that I'm not going to be good at doing a speech and language assessment as good as a speech therapist, and I'm going to need their input. And then the other thing was having kind of best practice. We wanted to be fairly straight down the line. We wanted to do things well. We wanted to do things in an affordable way in private practice for our patients. And so we wanted to kind of follow guidelines as best as we could. I think the most important thing out of all that, though, is being able to take care of your staff. And we've all talked about the compassion and being understanding where our staff are from. But I think if you treat your staff well, they're going to treat you well. And your secretary runs your life, so you want to be nice to them. So for me, I had some other goals in my head as well when I started private practice. And a part of work that I really enjoyed was Indigenous health and rural health, and I liked actually helping kids who are really disadvantaged. And you might think, how can you do that in private practice? And I think this is where kind of thinking outside the square and using a bit of flexibility can really be helpful. So at the same time, I set up another service where I do outreach clinics. So I visit several locations in Queensland. I go up to Emerald and Rocky and Billawheeler and Gladstone, and I go out west to Dalby. I have a couple of Indigenous clinics that I run, and these are all private clinics. And I can, I have big caseload of kids with in child safety as well. So I see a good variety of kids, and I think it's that variety which is helpful, where it's very different from a private practice in metropolitan Brisbane. But I think if you can think outside the square, then you can find alternative funding sources to kind of help supplement that and get the service up and running. You can use Medicare well with their good kind of telehealth rebates and kind of limiting kind of your overheads to make it financially viable. So I guess, why do I enjoy private practice? I guess there's a couple of reasons. The main reason is probably the top one. There's no red tape. So if I see something that I want to change, I just change it. There's nothing stopping me. If I find that this dictation process isn't working well for me, then I just change it. So I think being your own boss is really quite helpful. If you're willing to spend money on something, then you can just get it done without any problems. I think the world is your oyster, so instead of people saying, no, you can't do it that way, or you shouldn't do it that way, there's more people saying, yes, you can do it that way, and you get rewarded for that. You get rewarded for being innovative, and you get rewarded for being efficient. I think probably one of the main things, though, is kind of being able to set your work hours. So I like the fact that I have a day off a week. I like the fact that when the kids' rosters come out for school at the start of the year, I can allocate times to be there for the athletics and cross-country and swimming carnivals, as well as their kind of theatre productions and sport. Because for me, that kind of family time is the biggest thing that I want in my life. You can allocate leave when you like and take time away. And I guess being in a group practice is helpful because then you have people to kind of help you when you're away so that you don't get called too much. The other thing I find is that most people are trying to help you, which is quite nice. So if you want to get an MRI, most of the private radiology companies will be very happy to help you because I think they're getting paid for it. Allied health staff, they're very helpful. Pathology providers, if you want tests done or advice, it's quite easy just to pick up the phone, call someone and ask for some help. And then I think you do get fairly well remunerated, which is helpful. So how do you get started? If you think, look, I want to get into private practice, what are the options for me? And I think there's probably two options. There's one, you can join an existing practice. So you can join a group practice which is already set up. That way everything's kind of already done for you. Or you can set up your own practice. Going from my experience of setting up a private practice fairly much from scratch, That takes a lot of hard work, but the rewards are there. And if you enjoy running businesses and the business side of things, then that's probably a good option for you. So what are the couple of things that you need to kind of think of, I guess, when you are thinking of starting up a private practice? Well, there's a lot of registrations, and it's mainly about kind of your company, setting up your company, building, registering your name, domain names and things like that. There's lots of types of insurances out there, so you need to think about not just your public professional indemnity insurance, but you've got public liability insurance in case someone falls over and hurts themselves. You've got practice insurance in case your secretary tells someone to do the wrong thing and they end up hurting themselves. You have to have a think about your business structure. So how are you going to structure this up to be most effective? So are you going to have a company? Are you going to run a trust? Who's going to be the kind of directors? And this is where it's really helpful to have a good accountant and a good lawyer and getting good advice up front. So, accountants, lawyers, they charge a lot of money, but I think you'll save yourself if you can get it set up right at the very start. And then equipment. There's lots of equipment that you need, and where you used to, you need a stethoscope, BP monitors, but it's all the hardware that you need as well. So you need desks, you need a reception desk, you need computers. There's all the kind of IT stuff that you need. So I didn't know how servers and things work, but I have a good idea now because that's how most businesses are run. How you're going to run your phones, IT, and what software you're going to use, because you need to find out, well, am I going to use Genie, which is the common software that we use? What are you going to do? And then the hard part for me is finding good staff. You put ads out there and you get lots of replies, but it's really hard to find that right person. And having the right having the right staff is probably the key thing. And then you have to think about how do you manage staff. So human resources management is quite hard. You've got to make sure that you pay them appropriately. You've got to work out how much super, how much leave they're entitled to, and you need to have a good understanding of fair work rules in Australia. And then marketing and social media. So after you have all this set up, how are you going to get people through your door? So you probably have to set up a website, which is quite expensive to start off with. You've got to do your GP visits and kind of get out there and get your name recognised. And then there's Medicare, the nice simple thing that you can kind of read the PBS and it's all very straightforward, so it shouldn't cause too many problems. And then you have to find rooms, and this is nowhere, my room doesn't look like this. Mine's usually got crayons and stuff on, there's toys thrown all over the floor. I've got some really bad drawings on the window, that type of thing. But you can set it up the way you like. You can either lease rooms, or hospitals will give you offices, or you can purchase your own rooms. And there's different ways of going around and doing that from a financially viable point of view. So I just wanted to have a chat about my private practice experience in pictures, because I like using pictures, and tell you a little bit about what I do. So this is probably a third of our team now. So we've got lots of doctors, and the thing is, we like spending time outside of work together. So I think if you treat everyone well and you all get along really well, it makes your workplace an enjoyable place to work. And for me, that's probably the most important thing. I enjoy being around. I've just been on conference with a few of them. We've kind of had a really good time the last couple of days. And so this Tough Mudder thing's up there. So we did Tough Mudder together, but I think it just highlights supporting each other. Because as you finish your training, you're pretty inexperienced as a consultant, and I think you need that help around you. So I enjoy, one of the joys of my work is that I can go after clinic, knock on my colleague's door and ask questions about difficult cases. And we bounce ideas off each other. So I think that's one of the things about working in private practice, is that you feel sometimes you're in a bit of a silo. But I think that if you have lots of people around you who can support you, you can have your ongoing education and that peer support that someone mentioned earlier. We finished that, that's surprisingly. And I just want to talk about flexibility. I think flexibility is important, and we sponsor some of our doctors to go overseas because that's what they really like to do. So you'll see Diana here, she's in for, and Maria. So Diana was over in the Philippines last year doing a medical mission, and Maria, who's been over to East Timor and Mexico recently, doing work. And if that's your passion, that's what you like to do, then I think it's easy to get time off. It's easy to kind of get some support in private practice to kind of do that. And I think gives you the flexibility to work from home. So I do 2.5 days working from home because I do a lot of rural medicine, a lot of telehealth. So this is my office at the front of my house, and where I was preparing my talk early in the week. The commute's really good because I walk from my kitchen to my front office. It's great because my toddler and my kids are at home, so at lunch I give myself an hour off, so I sit down and have lunch with them, which is really nice. And someone's probably spotted the alcohol there, yeah. So you have, I didn't notice that at the very beginning, but you did? Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, rural medicine is a lot of developmental behavioural paediatrics, so that comes in very handy at about 5:01. But yeah, I mean, it gives you the flexibility to work from home, which is quite nice, and I love it. I can get out into the community. So this is Emerald in central Queensland, and I think it's the rural communities are the only place where I know the name of every school, but every head of special education, every guidance officer, every principal at each of these schools, because they all, and you know, all the speech and allied health, you know, OT, and it's great because you feel like you're part of the community, and I really value that part of my job. You get to see different parts of the country, but this is up here mainly because of the challenges that you can sometimes experience, and I like experiencing different challenges. So, you know, you'll have clinics where there are snakes around, which is a challenge, but it's very different medicine. If you like a bit of variety, then sometimes that's a good thing to experience. So I do a couple of Indigenous health clinics, and I talk about innovation and things because I'm linked in with a couple of Indigenous clinics privately in Brisbane as well, where they'll send me their patients. And as long as you end up bulk billing them, but as long as you're happy doing that, and use your appropriate Medicare item numbers, then you can make it financially viable. But then it gives me that variety, and I really enjoy that type of medicine, and it just means that you can do it in private practice as well. I like travelling, so you're usually travelling in small planes to little airports and things, which is an interesting part of my life. And then this is the other part I enjoy in in private practice, not purely special care, but this is here to just highlight the fact that you get to follow kids up over a long period of time. So you can see them as babies and they can keep coming back to you. But I guess when you compare it to the public system, where they might see a registrar, they might see a consultant, you kind of have that ongoing follow-up. And even though I've only been out for about 5 years now, I've had some kids where I've kind of followed them up and they're just about to start school now. And it's like we're helping them through that transition. So I think over time that will be an important part of my work. And so hopefully, I think the main nuggets I wanted you to get out of this is that private practice is flexible. Okay, have some clear goals and values that you want to kind of achieve, not just in work but in home life, and then create the job that's going to fit that. And I think that's something that you can do in private practice if you're a little bit innovative. So hopefully this isn't you running away from private practice, and hopefully it's you running towards maybe thinking about private practice as an option. So if you want, you can join our private practice, or you can set up your own private practice. But seriously, that's my phone number. If you want to give me a call, I'm happy to have a chat to you about it. But someone was talking before about mentors and having people who've been through it, giving you advice. And I'm happy to kind of mentor and kind of give you advice because there's no point in reinventing the wheel.